If you haven't been living under a rock, you've probably heard about the recent Olympic controversy with the Algerian boxer Imane Khalif. Controversy followed when Imane Khalif's opponent bowed out of the boxing match 40 seconds in, initially stating that she thought it was unjust and unfair. The reason why she felt it was unjust because Imane Khalif had recently failed a gender test in a previous world championship. It was said that the gender test tested for chromosomes. Imane Khalif came up as an XY chromosome. XY would make you a man. I mean, I guess it's in the name, Imane Khalif. Joking, of course, but this bears into more of a serious question. Is Imane Khalif a man? And following on from this question, it bears another one. And that is, should trans people be competing in sports? Now, I know before you comment, I know Imane Khalif is not a trans person, but I do feel it takes us on to the topic of should biological men be competing in women's sports? So to address Imane Khalif first, we don't know, truly, if Imane Khalif is actually a woman. Now, regardless of where you stand in this debate, both sides have been getting it wrong, I feel, in the last few days. One side has been touting she's a transgender, which she's not, and the other side has been saying that without a doubt, she is a female. Now, a couple of reasons why they feel that she is a female. One, because her father came out with documents of her birth certificate saying so. Two, that the Olympic Committee testing said she's a female. And three, because she says so, and previous photos of her from a child shows that she's a girl. Where the other side is coming from is more of a case of testosterone levels and how that may affect performance. So that's what we're going to get into. Now, it's said that Imane Khalif suffers from DSD, essentially intersex. Women with DSD can actually show XY chromosomes. However, it's important to state this, with all the research I've done on this, a lot of women with DSD can be assigned female at birth. However, when puberty later kicks in, this can be atypical or non-existent whatsoever. For example, a female may not go through a period in her teenage years. She may not develop breasts, for example. This can then lead to further problems and bring potentially to bear that actually the chromosomes and the internal functions within your body actually speaks to more of a male anatomy. Now, the main question and concern is, Imane Khalif, did she go through male puberty? That's the difference. Now, with the photos that they've put up of her as a child, it's hard to tell if she looks like a girl or not. I mean, you could put any kind of boy in a dress with long hair and some may pass as a girl, but it's the puberty end that makes the difference. So we don't really know if Imane Khalif has went through male puberty. Now, burn all photos, and I'm gonna show some photos here of her in her daily life. It's very hard, in my personal opinion, it's very hard to see her as actually a woman in some of these photos. A lot of the structure and the stance and the body language actually screams male. Now, she did in the previous committee have very levels of high testosterone. Now, from what we understand, the Olympics, all they test on is the passport. That's it. So if the passport says female, which if you have the birth certificate at the doctor assigned you at female at birth, obviously your passport's gonna say female, then the Olympic just says, okay, that's good enough. Now, the high testosterone levels. The problem is that if she had high testosterone levels in the range of males, that would be quite concerning. Now, some people do say that, well, even if she had the high test levels in the range of males, some women have that too. And it's true, some women do have high testosterone levels, but they do not have the same, even if they have high test levels, it's not gonna be nowhere near the same range as what a male would in high testosterone level. And the key here is if Imane Khalif went through puberty. If she went through male puberty, then she would bestow all the benefits of that. For example, males going through puberty, they have a more capacity of heart and lung capacity, fat rich muscle fibers increased, reaction times increased, strength is increased. There's so many benefits of going through puberty, regardless if your test levels are lowered or higher or not, that you would have over a female component. But there's not much more to say in this. It's hard to know if Imane Khalif is actually suffers from DSD with intersex, that through puberty, actually it turns out that she is actually a male. If that test came out as correct, that she did actually have XY chromosomes, then it's very hard to argue that she's not a man. Now, some conditions show that women do have XY, and DSD is that condition. And a lot of it is being spouted at the minute that Imane Khalif can bear children. If Imane Khalif has XY, there is absolutely no chance that she can have children. Now, the women that do have XY chromosomes that have birth children, and by the way, this has only been around 13 to 15 cases worldwide that this has ever happened. If you look into those cases, it's women with the mix of XX and XY. So if you are a woman with XY and you unfortunately have DSD, the chance of you giving birth is next to zero. But quite frankly, both sides don't really know. We don't actually know if Imane Khalif has went through male puberty and is a biological male inside. And if she is then the argument of her being put up against a woman would be actually quite a relevant argument. But because we don't know, let's talk about the trans debate and my opinion on it. I'm going to give it to you quite simply. If a biological man who has transitioned to a woman wants to compete in women's sports, I don't think that she should be allowed. Now, I'm being respectful here. I'm saying she. I don't think they should be allowed for one simple reason. They have went through male puberty. And it was the reason that I described before. That makes a massive difference. Now, some might argue depending on the sport. For example, if it was snooker, I don't really have too much of a problem with that if it's snooker. Or table tennis. Sometimes it's better to be actually with a smaller hand palm than a larger hand for something like table tennis, for example. But then you're in the question with heightened reaction times, which is decreased for women and slightly heightened for men during puberty. But the point still stands. We with our own eyes can observe that on a high average, males always seem to outperform in terms of strength, agility, and speed women. And the main problem of all this is that we have so-called biologists or scientists that's trying to debunk this and trying to say that, oh, well, sex isn't actually a binary. And they try to confuse the waters with syndromes and mutations in genes. They use these as essentially scapegoats to allow biological men to compete in women's sports, especially when you use the excuse of, well, some women are stronger than men. But at high levels, men's scores and high scores and achievements are way vastly higher than the women at their top of their level. The problem with all this is we can observe with our own eyes on a daily basis from growing up that on a high average, men tend to be stronger than women. And that's not me having to go at women. That's just basic observable facts. One of the main prefixes of science is what you can observe with your own eyes and your own senses. And we have certain authoritative parties try to take that away from us to say, regardless of what your observations and your senses feel, we're gonna try to muddy the waters and confuse the matter. And when they muddy the waters, usually when you actually read their explanations, there's actually not much of a retort or an explanation to it. At the end of it, it just says, be kind. The problem is we don't see the flip. We don't see biological women transition to males competing in male sport. We only see it one way round. Now, people would say, why do you care? And people would also say, why does it matter? Sport is supposed to be something that you do for yourself. In high levels of sport, these are insanely competitive areas. You have no idea the amount of time, blood, sweat, and tears people have put into a specific sport to be good at it. Sacrificing time with family, friends, loved ones, money. Everything goes into this to simply win. After a while, it doesn't come from a place of passion or love. It comes from a place of winning. If you've sunk half your existence into one specific thing to be good at, for it to be taken away from a moment's notice, from someone that's just came in, and it shouldn't be competing in your weight class or your area, it is soul destroying. Now, I do have sympathy. It is very hard if you were born with intersex or something like this condition, or issues with your sex, and you're being excluded from these things. I completely agree. Unfortunately, in society, we don't bend and change the rules for the small percentage of the minority, for the 1%. And if we did that, then we sacrifice 99% of the other majority. See, when you give someone one thing, you take from someone else. And in sports, you could be taking a considerable amount from someone. This is not like installing a wheelchair ramp in a local community centre. That wouldn't affect anyone without a wheelchair. But in sports, taking a title away from someone, or taking a place or an opportunity, is massive. Again, regardless of what your opinions are in the trans debates, and I'm not giving an opinion on this, all I'm saying is, in the idea of performance in sport, male and female is very different. There's a reason why weight classes exist. There's a reason why male and female divisions exist. And I don't need some quote-unquote biologist to try to lecture me on that. I can see it with my own senses. You can see it with your own observable senses. We should encourage everyone to get into sport and to be healthy, to be fit, and to exercise. But this is very different when it comes to elite levels of competition. Everyone should have an equal opportunity, but we definitely should not start to manipulate that within the murky waters, and especially with people that try to take an advantage of this. There's been many situations and occasions where biological men have manipulated and abused the rule system, came in with women divisions and smashed and broke all the records. I don't know in any God's name how that could be considered as female empowering exactly. What we're doing is taking opportunities away from women. Anyway, Imane Khalif. We don't know really if she is in fact a woman or a man. It could very well be possible that she went through male puberty. Or it could be very well possible that she is just more of a masculine female. In terms of the trans competing in sports debate, While it is a very touchy and controversial subject, I feel from my point of view, taking the opportunity away from the majority is more detrimental than taking the opportunity away from the minority. We must recognize the minority and what we can do to assist and help them and potentially create a own category division to not exclude them, but mixing them in with divisions that clearly they can easily outperform should not be the answer.